presenting now. Okay, so Script Josh. Hope you guys having a wonderful Thursday. It's almost their weekend. So this is the first lesson I did. I did this in the beginning of the school year. So it's called Petroglyphs, Snippets of Data. So if you see the petroglyph, you can see that's a spiral, and that's a common one, especially in the southern Arizona. There's been a lot of spirals, and a lot of our students, they have ancestral ties to it. They have stories about these petroglyphs, and you know, it's fascinating because no one can really know the true meaning, but you can still make an inference. Oh, make a prediction. So I always thought that was interesting. So moving on. So the objective. So I have two objectives. The first one, they would do a card sort, and after the card sort, they would describe at least two criteria for what makes something data. And the second one is by etching a petroglyph and interpreting other petroglyphs, I would be able to explain why one cannot include the true meaning of petroglyph and provide at least one reason for the need of multiple perspectives and science on the exit ticket. And here's the success criteria. For my school, they want the success criteria, so that's why I included it. It just shows that the students learned it. So what are they doing to show that they learned it? So these are the things that they have to do. So car sort. So I'll pull that up right now. So, what's good with this lesson is you can adapt it to your student needs. If you want to put other things that they can relate to, go for it. But for me, I really want to focus on the traditional methods. So, storytelling, and it's cool because it's winter time, almost winter, so the animals are not out. So, therefore, storytelling will begin. So, be on the lookout. If you get invited for a storytelling event, go to it. It's always fascinating, and it's always cool to hear what stories come out of it. I know Saguaro National Park, they having a storytelling event. I think that will happen at the end of January. No, I think that happened at the end of December or January, but I'm not sure. But just be on the lookout for that. And the other one is the calendar stick. So the calendar stick is it's really special for them. What happens is if you see that there's carvings, so the calendar stick is passed to between different people, and each time it's passed, that person that holds it, they carve a memorable event, and so each of these events was memorable to a different person. So each of these carvings were carved by a different person. So it's cool because like it's succession. You can see the lineage or um, the overall journey of the calendar stick. So those are the things I included, and I included petroglyphs. I included gossip, social media, emotion, journal, and graphs. Um, I included things that they can't argue about because I think students will learn a lot when they share their own opinions and what their thought process was. And it's pretty cool because I did in the beginning of the year, so I already knew, so I saw how they responded to it. And it's interesting because the freshmen, the kids I never had before, they always say like, "Oh, graphs are data." But my chemistry kids, I had them last year. They were making an argument for everything, like social media. Oh, you can keep track of the number of likes, or you can see who follows you, or even your feed. It's giving the data. So I thought that was cool. My chemistry kids, they were really open to the idea that anything can be really data. So the next slide afterwards is the data. So I give them the definition. I reinforce that, data is just not about numbers and graphs. It's information that's collected about the world, either knowingly or not. And I put either knowingly or not because a lot of times, especially with my students, they walk outside and they make observations. But for them, they don't think that's data. But I have to keep telling them, like, yeah, you are a scientist. You're making observations about the natural world. And it's pretty cool that what they come with. They always tell me, oh, mister, do you see the full moon? I was like, what? I didn't even pay attention to the moon. So they really focus on observing what's going around them and making connections. And for them, that's their way of life. So it's really cool to celebrate that. So, this was a thing that came out of the summer that I really love. What um, Dr. Bogan said was like, "What's the story? Is the data telling us?" I think that really connected. I'm really connected with that because I never really thought about that. I always thought, data was separate from storytelling. I didn't realize it can be interwoven. So that's what I tell the students. Every time we do graphing now, telling them what's the story, what's the story you're trying to tell, and they can really relate to that. It's like, oh, Mister, I'm trying to compare. So okay, so what graph can we use for comparison? So I literally have them have the graph matrix in their notebooks, and it's been helpful. I keep referring back to it, having them look at it. So then I'll start introducing petroglyphs. Petroglyphs are carved into rocks by the ancestral people. Don't get confused with petrographs. Petrographs are drawings, while petroglyphs are the carvings. And you can they can tell a lot about what was going on during that time. So they like records of events, memories, and stories. So if you look closely, there's a double sun and at the Chaco Canyon National Monument. And during this time, they believe a supernova did occur. So while the archaeologists and the community members, they think the reason why there was two suns is because they were witnessing that supernova and they were documenting it. And for me, I thought that was so cool. Like even back way, way, way then, people were still curious about the world. And my kids, they love that fact when I told them. So the next one is the fun part, carving. How I made the clay tablets was I just wrought out clay, cut little squares, and let it dry. If I was to redo it again, I would make it thicker, because a lot of them were thin and broke. But each person got a clay tablet, and they were toothpick, and I gave them a prompt. So their prompt was carve a image that represents their favorite memory. And the reason I added a prompt is because a lot of times if you say, "Oh, just carve, whatever," they get really hesitant and they don't want to do it and they don't have an idea what to start with. So that's why I gave them that prompt. A lot of them started doing petroglyph. The only thing I would change is that they need more than 5 minutes. A lot of them were just like, they were just like de-stressing from the first day. They were just carving, talking to each other. So it was good overall. So I would give them more time for that. So then after carving, this one we call interpret. So I had them lay their petroglyphs in the middle of the classroom. So I have, if you go in my classroom, in the middle of the classroom, they're all the petroglyphs. And so what we did was during this time, I told them they cannot talk of like, they cannot show each other what they did. So they put all the tablets on the ground, and then I would pick one petroglyph. And as a class, we had to interpret the meaning of the petroglyph. So I would ask them, like, what does it look like? What's the image? What do you think the person that carved it is trying to convey? And it was pretty interesting because they were common themes. So a lot of them carved like them playing in the rain. And it was interesting because when I thought of rain, I wouldn't think of playing in the rain. I would be like, oh, I hate the rain. Or like, oh, sometimes rain is scary. But for them, they had a really positive connotation. And majority had that positive connotation. So during this time when they interpreting, I had them write the answers on the board because you know how students are. If you cold call them before giving them a chance to think, they're not willing to give the answer. So this was like kind of a buffer for them to at least have a chance to write down the thoughts, have the chance to actually, know what they're gonna say. Then I pick a random generator to pick someone. Um, just to make sure they're on their toes and paying attention, just to keep them engaged. And a lot of times they had fun with it because in the end we were like, okay, who carved it? And the person would raise the hand. And I would ask them, like, did we did it? Like, do we interpret it correctly? And there was like 50-50. Sometimes we got it like way wrong and sometimes we got it right. So it was cool. So the next thing after that was discussion, shoulder partner. So this was time for their reflection. So these are the three questions I put on the board on the screen was, can one include the true meaning of a petroglyph? Is science a static or evolving process? And then in archaeology, they use multiple lines of evidence. What does that mean to you? And I gave them like 3 minutes to talk it out with the shoulder partner, and then I cold called on them once again. And these questions, I want them to really start thinking about, science is not always perfect. Never going to always have a true meaning, or you can't really conclude something, but that's okay. And that's what they got from it. They realized, even though you might have stories about the petroglyph, even though you might have different evidence that point to a meaning, you really don't really know because you're not the person who carved it. And they saw that, science is not the end all be all. It's like a living thing. It will keep changing once you get more information. And now they're realizing that. So I thought that was cool. So then lastly was this exit ticket. This is from during the summer. I really love the elephant. So they had this elephant, and I told them what's like. First, I gave them scaffolding. I was like, okay, so what is it? Why are they a group of scientists? What does this mean? And after that, I had them do the activity, the exit ticket. And I think it was the lessons were successful. Cause looking back on the exit tickets, most of them was like, we need multiple perspectives. Like each person has relates to the information differently. And I think that's a really good activity for the first day because it shows that, each of us bring our own unique perspective to the classroom. You might not agree, but it can still be beneficial as a whole. And even to this day, I think I can still see it because when my students are working, they're always collaborating, they're always willing to share the answer with each other. And so that was my first lesson, petroglyphs.